Greetings, reporting in from pod 357 of the flip ship. Of course, when the thing starts, Richard is slightly frozen, but I would like to request everyone here to involve themselves in a sound check. Richard, how are you doing? And once Richard replies, can everybody tell us if the audios are leveled? And goodbye, Richard. Damn it! We were doing so good. We were doing so good. Oh my lord. Anyways, audio's okay. Oh, there he is again. Richard, hello.
I'm so sorry, Pierre. I'm so sorry, everybody. The signal is really not strong. I found a slightly stronger place to go, but it's obviously still not great.
Right now, it's really, really good. So, in that
Okay.
exchange between me and him, are the levels equal? Everybody in the chat, let us know. In the meantime, I'll ask you, what's been up, man?
I have been relaxing and doing a minimal amount of work, so that's been very pleasant in the week since we've spoken. And as you probably remember, I wasn't that keen on coming here, and now I really love the place, and I don't want to leave.
Is that your next thing that you're going to move to for 6 months?
Yes. Somebody asked me today if I lived here. Somebody was like, "Oh, so you're living here?" And I was like, "No, but that's a good idea."
So what has changed about it? I mean, wait, hold on. Just last week you were saying that they're everybody like holding fucking rifles and shit, and then now you want to move there?
Oh yeah, no. In the real world, there's rifles and chaos, but I'm behind the high walls. You know, in the dystopian nightmare, there's usually a utopia, right? Where a select few go before they're eventually eaten by the have-nots. I think the last film I saw that was like that was the Mockingbird films, whatever they're called, Hunger Games, Hunger Games. So I'm behind the high wall of the Hunger Games right now.
You are the monarchy, my friend.
That's right. That's right. I am a part of the monarchy right now, waiting to be guillotined.
Okay, so somebody in the chat said that you could be louder, Richard, but what we're gonna do instead is I'm gonna turn my volume just slightly down, so that way me and Richard are a bit more equal. Let me know if that's okay, everybody in the chat. But in the meantime, so you are primarily, I'm assuming, just enjoying the amount of sun and the fact that you can just chill the fuck out.
You know me, and I obviously I know that you suffer with this a little bit as well. I am a real workaholic. I mean, I'm always doing something, and I know you're the same way. And I'm actually
Hmm.
having the experience of seeing value in actually just taking a break, because
Hmm.
my normal psychotic CPTSD mindset would be like taking a break is merely a waste of time. I could
Right.
be being productive. What is a break for? It is for weakness.
Right. So, assuming that you called that PTSD, that means I have a bit of that too. I have a lot of
Oh,
bit of that.
you didn't know. See, I don't psychoanalyze my friends. I think it's terribly rude. I just assumed that you'd pick it up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always thought it came from another avenue. I didn't know the working thing was also a bit of that. but
Oh yeah.
but yeah, no, that's interesting, man. Like in a way, I feel like I'm in the same boat of learning how to relax, but at the same time, I'm like, holy fuck, I actually got a lot of shit done in the time that I
Yeah.
was supposed to take a break. But I've really toned it
Yes.
down in my standards. But just I guess we're kind of relaxing at how we prefer to relax. You know, you're on the balcony with the
Yes.
sun, sweating
Yes.
and like carrying was like 50-kilogram dumbbells, like you're just picking up a
Yes.
bag of beef jerky, just like
Yes. I just finished at the gym. I just finished at the gym and I tortured myself in the gym. And then I come out of the gym and I'm like, it's wonderful to do nothing. It's wonderful to just relax. But my day is still a regimented series of relaxing things that I must do at certain times.
yeah, dude. I saw you on the Instagram, and you're just holding like this giant fucking dumbbell, just like with two fingers, dude. It's just like there's no resistance into you actually doing the reps. But
There's,
in my
there's
end,
actually go on, sorry.
no, go ahead. There's actually what?
I was just going to say there's actually a blooper of that where I pick up a really heavy dumbbell, didn't realize, and I start doing reps with it, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I've gone really weak, and I was like, oh, I thought it was a 10. This is an 18. I'm dying here.
Nice, nice. Yo, dude. Yeah, so I mean, on the opposite end, I mean, I'm working out with those resistance bands you gave me, and it's doing
Awesome.
a good job. But my way of relaxing is just diving deep into video games, and I've been watching a lot more just movies and series is and
Cool.
the reason the biggest reason why I've avoided all these things was just I had the same reactionary thing of like I feel like I'm wasting my fucking time if I'm just
Yeah.
sitting there playing a game or watching movies, and I'm really allowing myself to just dive into the anti-workaholism mode.
Yes. Yeah. It's a bit of a life lesson for me right now. I just never valued it. I was just like, cool, because
Right.
people keep asking me, how many vacations a year do you take? Where do you usually go? And I'm like, I don't take vacations. I work in different countries. And then I was like, oh, actually, this is becoming a vacation. And I can see the value of just, I don't know, just read a book and have nothing on the schedule and get in the sea for a little bit. And there's just nothing to be done. There's no pressure there. And of course, my insomnia has lifted in this environment.
Oh, no way.
So yeah, the insomnia is actually this prove well, it doesn't prove it, but it's a heavy indicator for me that my ongoing insomnia is actually a symptom of the workaholism. So there is, I mean, a serious point here is there's something I really need to look at therapeutically for myself because I can see here from the Dominican Republic, I am definitely an adrenophile and a workaholic as well, for sure.
Considering I'm assuming everything is really, really slow there, yeah?
Oh my God. People look at you like you're crazy if you rush. So I rushed from the gym to come to the podcast and they just laugh at me. The staff are they call me Rambo. They just laugh at me. They're just like, haha, you know you're on vacation, right?
Really? Damn.
So
Yeah, man.
yeah,
I mean, like, I'm so adjusted to that fast-paced lifestyle that I wouldn't even know where to begin in terms of how to even interact in an environment like you're in right now and be like, what? Like you like I don't know if I could just chill like that.
yeah. It's I had a friend of mine, I used to live with him. He was a bit of a nutcase and he was a drug dealer and he classified his friends by drugs. And he said some of his friends would be like a shot of whiskey, some of them would be like smoking weed. And he said, Richie, you're a line of coke. Being with you is like snorting a really strong line of coke. And I think he was right. People are like that, and places are like that. This place is very definitely rum and weed. This is not methamphetamine and cocaine. This is rum and weed. It's everything is loose, slow, and time dilated, and
Hmm.
you just don't want to be rushing it. And the place trains you into it. There's beautiful birdsong all the time. The wind's rustling through the trees. It's a physically stunning environment, and it's easy to just find yourself just looking at the sea and just sitting there for time passes, and you're just staring at the amazing shades of blue in the sea. It's wonderful, really beautiful place.
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, maybe I mean, I'm saying that I won't adjust to it, but when everything is surrounding you at that speed, it might be
Yeah,
very different because you kind of
yeah.
just I think like you and I were saying, like you can easily pick up on the environment and if it's really cold and dark in winter, just like automatically the sensitivity just heightens so much that I imagine if I were to be in a situation like that, I would easily slow down within like a week or two too.
The context is everything. The context entrains you physiologically. Running around means you sweat. So everybody adopts a similar sort of walk. It's like a rolling cowboy walk to try and not sweat. And so
Uh,
if you're
God.
walking slowly and
Yeah.
you're sort of rolling as you walk, it's kind of hard to be really stressed out, really pissed off and irritated and trying to do everything all at once while sort of rolling around like you're Jack Sparrow going across a tilting deck. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Interesting. Well, I never even thought about that because I am considered to walk like a fucking snail to a lot of the
Right.
people that I know out here in the Czech Republic, and I'm like, what do you mean? And everyone's like just strutting like they're on a runway. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you guys walking so fast? Even though I'm definitely like very impatient, I'm usually in a rush. But the natural walking speed to colder climates would make sense because they need to warm
Yeah.
their ass up, whereas opposed to that,
Yeah.
everyone's just barreling.
Yes. And in a cold climate, you go from a warm room outside, you scurry around, you get things done irritatedly and impatiently because the cold is painful, back to another warm environment. So you scurry between warm environments. Here, outside is more pleasant than inside. So the other thing that I really think is affecting the insomnia and clearing it up is I'm spending overwhelmingly more time outside than inside. And I think that's just more natural. I think that's just what we're evolved for. We're not supposed to be inside all the time. And being inside all the time, for me, I'm sure it's different genetically by individual, really is I think is a big factor in the insomnia as
Oh,
well.
sure, dude. Like, strangely enough, like even me and Mickey, which by the way, we made a Christmas song. I'll tell you about that after the stream.
Oh, nice.
Really, really naughty. But but so man, me and Mickey were saying like he's also staying up until like 3, almost 4 in the morning unintentionally
Mm,
sometimes.
mm,
And even me included, I've been going to sleep really late, man.
mm.
And even with this treadmill that I use every day and working out, more exercise than I'll ever do in my life, I'm still finding myself sleeping so late just because
Yeah.
of the lack of being able to go outside, and all of that energy
Yes.
just gets really pent up somehow.
Yes. Yeah. It's. I remember staying with a French family when I was a kid. I was on an exchange, and the first week we did in Dunkirk, which is in the north, and the second week they took me to their holiday home in Bordeaux, and I remember sleeping like a baby down in Bordeaux, and they were laughing. They were like, "It's the sea air." And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, it's like grandmother wisdom. You just nod along with it. But I'm like, there can't be any science behind that. There can't be something special about sea air that makes you sleep more. And now I'm going, maybe there is something to it. Maybe there is something to being by the sea and just it it it's a soothing, calming effect on you to be near the sea and to hear the waves all the time. It's very, very soothing. And you do just it's I fall asleep like that. I hit the pillow and I'm gone. In Prague, it could take me like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. I have to do some self-hypnosis or some weird ritual to get myself to sleep.
Because it's kind of overstimulation city, right? Now you know why I like it out here.
Perfect for ADHD. You've got everything all the time going.
Immediately. So, I watched your last video. This actually goes into it. It was about cognitive dissonance at a collective level. I think it
Yeah.
was really good. And the
Well,
reason
thank
why I
you.
bring that up is because California is really slow in terms of it's a desert, it's even beaches sort of the thing, and the weather is, always sunny. You're always able to do things. It can be really hot too. And but at the same time, there's this dissonance of everybody is still in a rush, under stress, or pressured to work
Yes.
or do whatever like that, while the environment is saying the complete opposite of chill the fuck out. And
Yes.
I was thinking about this as we are describing this. I was like, okay, wait, California has the same kind of climate environment, but why was I so stressed out and felt completely under pressure in a physical environment that's supposed to be slow? You know what I mean?
Mm. Mm. It's an interesting question, and I think we're safe to say it's actually become a theme. Like between me and you, our conversations, not just America, but Los Angeles itself is a running theme because it is an anomalous place. It is a bit of an anomaly. It should be chilled, and it really isn't. It should be wonderful, and it really isn't. Trying to describe to people, as we both did at dinner, I remember trying to tell people what LA is really like versus their fantasies of what it is. And they just kind of look through you. They're like, it can't be that bad. It can't be. And it's like, it's not that bad. It's just not. It's not. When you get there, you will be disappointed if you think it's going to be like in the movies because it isn't. Can't be.
Yeah.
And the difference is so big, but it's a one-off. It's a special place from that point of view. Hola, perdón. No, gracias, no lo necesito. Hoy no, gracias. Sí, toallas, sí, por favor. Sí, gracias. I I was talking to a parrot yesterday, And the only thing the parrot could say was "hola," and I actually thought the parrot had come here and was saying "hola, hola" to me. That's why I ignored it for.
Half of the chat just splooshed so hard right now, just pulling out that Espanol like it's nobody's business. Just like no fucking effort at all. Yeah, man. Speaking of semi-Spanish speaking locations, California was definitely one of them, man. And with your observations on cognitive dissonance in that video, I mean, to put it simply, to summarize, is just like cognitive dissonance is just sharing two ideas that conflict, or you have one idea and something else shows you the complete opposite, and you kind of like have that unsettling discomfort from the conflict between the two. I think
Yes.
California, LA, is the epitome of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
physically, it's not the worst place. Oh, actually, it depends where you go. There are definitely terrible places. But I think what we're describing here is that, I mean, I can't think of really many other places around the world that share that same dissonance. You know what I mean? Can you think of any other examples?
No, no, because if you go to um, similar cities with a warm environment, and I'm trying to think where's nearby. I mean, San Diego isn't like Los Angeles. San Diego's obviously it has problems. Every city does, but it's not known for being cranky, grumpy, traffic jam, stab you to death over a cheeseburger place. If you
Yeah.
go further down, Tijuana's not that far, and Tijuana certainly isn't like that. You go east to Las Vegas. I know it's a desert environment, but that's actually pretty well. My personal experience is it's pretty chilled. Tempe, I've been to in Arizona a few times, chilled as hell. So it's supposed to be. And there's actually a psychologist, I think it was Philip Zimbardo, who's from New York, but originally his family's from Sicily. And he observed going back to Sicily that once you get closer to the equator and the environment gets hotter, that you can start to build a case with data and experimentation that people's sense of time dilates and the tendency towards being more relaxed with deadlines and more relaxed with expectations is definite. So the warmer it is and the closer to the equator it is, the more chilled it is. Well, I don't know, maybe LA didn't get the memo. Maybe Los Angeles just didn't get that because in again, it's only my subjective experience. It's one of the most stressful, negative chi, bad feng shui cities I've ever been to. And it's so consistent in its crappiness and its bad attitude.
Yeah, yeah, totally, man. Um, so my viewpoint, it's one of the most psychologically distressing places because of the dissonance. Or I feel
Right.
like maybe if you went to New York, obviously it's rough. You know, people are a bit more in your face. It's rude.
Mm,
Everything's fast, quick. It's
mm.
eccentric. People screaming and shit. But you kind of know what you're getting. I don't know what I'm getting because Richard totally just disappeared for the second time. But I guess I'll continue with my thought. What I believe is that California has the complete opposite effect, where it's supposed to be one thing. Richard,
I'm
you there?
back. I
Okay.
can see, I can see you now. I couldn't before.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were talking about New York.
So yeah, New York is at least psychologically consistent,
Right.
where California has all of those mechanisms that oppose. It's like a clock with all of the gears that don't exactly intertwine with each other, but somehow it's still moving. And like a good example of it, like just in the pure premise of Hollywood, is like a manifested psychological projection of what reality should be, with the glamour and beautiful actors and actresses that, it becomes this whole thing with transformers blowing each other up and superheroes flying everywhere. Then you go
Mm,
there, and three
mm.
streets down you have Skid Row with people with typhus and like
Yeah.
shitting themselves and ODing, which is already inherently the biggest dissonant clash of ideas. And then you also have just the
Yes.
demeanor of like everybody's miserable on meds with Xanax and ADHD medication, while everybody's like, "Hi, how are
Yeah.
you? Oh my god, I
Yeah.
love you." But at the same time, everybody there's like tons of prescription overdoses in the place. It's incredible the amount of conflicting ideas that happen there.
I think what's one of the things that's clear with Los Angeles is that it's obviously changed a lot, even in, let's say, the last 100 years. So you go back to 1920, and obviously I wasn't there, but I stayed in a place in, I think it's West Hollywood. I think it's called, oh, I think it's called either it's got a Spanish name that's either the Queen or the Princess, La Princesa, something like that. And it's an old Spanish house, Spanish style house. And they have historical photos in there of that area of West Hollywood and what it looked like in
Yeah.
the 1920s, 1930s. And it was totally different. It would be great to get hold of somebody who could remember what it was like and talk to them about it, because it just it looked, well, I don't know what it, obviously it looked very, very different. There was a time where you could see why it would be the center of culture and filmmaking in the world. It had a very clean sort of they have a colonial zone here in Santo Domingo. They call it Zona Colonial, oddly enough, and it looked a bit like that. So these old colonial style Spanish houses, and they're really beautiful. And there was a lot of space, and everything looked whitewashed and clean and bright in the sun. And you kind of think, yeah, that makes sense. You look at Hollywood now, and you think, what the hell is that? Is this place infected with something? Is the are the buildings infected with building AIDS or something? It's like there's something
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
air that's not right. There's something that's not right there.
My hypothesis of why Hollywood became the epicenter for these things is not like anything metaphysical, but
Yeah.
there's huge metaphysical element. But my idea is just that there's just literally just more space there. You know, like
Mm,
movies started off on the East Coast, maybe, and then there was just a ton of empty warehouses in space to shoot the
yeah.
films. So then
Yes.
eventually that became a thing, and then it took off. They're like, "Oh fuck, looks like we're
Yes.
gonna continue doing that here." You know?
But and isn't it crazy? Like if you actually fly over, say if you fly LA San Diego, or you fly LA up to Portland, there's still space. There's huge, vast swathes of land and beaches, beautiful, totally untouched. But this is the way humans are. Everything has a gravity. So because that's the place people go, it's like a black hole. It's on
Mm.
an infinitely dense gravity, and everything just goes back there and goes back there and goes back there. And you think, I was like flying over it, going, wow, we don't need to all be there. You don't even have to
Right.
go that far north,
Right.
and there's just tons of land and tons of space. But I think you're 100% right. That's why it started, is because yeah, space, nothing more than space
Yeah. And
and
then
light.
here's the metaphysical element. So the four virtues: attractiveness, money, power, popularity. Only those with high levels of those virtues should be allowed in LA. And
Mm,
I think Yuji Rose said something about, oh wait, glamour being a bit of witchcraft or
yeah,
black, involving black magic. And
it
I
is.
think
Yeah,
we had a conversation something similar to this, where you said something along the lines of like movies, particular movies, are almost like these psychological rituals, like a type of magic,
yes,
right?
yeah, yeah. Hollywood itself. I mean, the Hollywood of Hollywood is a reference to, highly spiritually charged magical relic. The holy wood itself
Mm.
is it's right there in the name. We talk about stars. Well, why are they stars? Who were the people who wore stars and moons on
Yeah.
their outfits? They were witches and wizards. And
Oh,
to put a glamour on somebody was to force them through black magic to fall in love with you. So if I cast a glamour over another human being, it's like trauma bonding them to me. So we say, oh, they're so glamorous. It's like, oh, so they're reeking of black magic that binds you to them. Yeah, that sounds great. Let me go and hang around with glamorous people.
well, yeah, no, for sure. Like you definitely have 100 million times more knowledge when it comes to this type of magic with the K. I had a lot more experience with the actual performing stage magic, but it's all the same principles. And one of the biggest principles of this is just the idea of deception, and embodying somebody in an illusion.
Yeah,
They see
yeah,
one thing, but it's actually the other thing. And
yeah.
to tie it into the situation with Hollywood and the glamour thing, they're like these ritual farms to manifest realities that are spells that are casted onto people, and people believe them entirely to be the actual reality itself. But that's the
Yes, and
trick. That's the magic.
that's the trick, and they're cast broadly, which is why they're called broadcasts. So you cast your net to catch your fish as broadly as you can in a broad cast. It's about binding people magically to a zombie version of reality, as you just said. Yeah, it's very much about desperately trying to reproduce a false reality and make people deny what is plainly there in front of their eyes, their ears, and their noses. They can smell
Yeah.
shit, but they're being told this isn't shit, this is something wonderful. Pretend you can't smell the shit. That's what the cool people do. Don't you want to be cool? Don't you want to be blind like us? And that's the message we've been fed. Clearly, it's coming to an end. I mean, physically,
Right.
people are leaving Los Angeles en masse if they can. They are simply abandoning the place in huge numbers.
Yeah, so that's exactly the dissonance that one would get by going to the ritual farm of Hollywood, where they
Mm.
are cast this spell, but what they see is so completely opposite with Skid Row and the corruption and just the pure unesthetic qualities of the place, that in order to further function in that, you have to further cast a bigger spell on yourself or be a
Yeah.
part of the ritual in order to live functionally there.
Yes, absolutely. You're going to have to join in or leave. There's not going to be any fence sitting in that environment, which I think you saw very early on when you're doing the fashion work and getting your casting spots and everything. I'm sure you would have felt that um,
Yeah.
sort of implicit decision. Like it hangs in the air. You're either on the casting couch or you're not, kid. Do you want this job or don't you?
Yes. Is there, so I want to ask, like, is there historical context or in like a historical, yeah, historical context when it comes to the breaking of a spell? Like, is there some sort of archetype that happens, like a pattern that happens when someone gets broken out of a spell or decides to leave it?
I mean, there's different mythologies. We have like children's stories that talk about it that are based on old myths. We have from Africa all the way to next door of here, Haiti. We have the original zombies. Zombies are real things. They're real people. I think we've discussed it here before. The word zombie comes from a West African word, nzumbi, which I think is a small god, not a particularly nice one, and you can actually zombify people, and then you cause them to believe that they are your slave, and they function as brain dead slaves. This then was taken up as a cool idea, and then it became like the George A. Romero zombie movies and hordes of zombies. But the breaking of the spell, yeah, there's always been in every story spell breaks. I mean, my story of going to Malaysia where Spartan Life Coach was started, I went there not to start a YouTube channel about psychology, but to break a love spell that had been done on me using Malaysian black magic. And the 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 archetype or the archetypal process, I guess, is one that I lived, which was you become so broken that you finally admit there's something wrong with you, and then you turn to help. Now, if you've been put under the spell of dark magic, you have to seek light magic. You have to seek good magic, and then the archetypal, Master Yoda would hopefully appear, and that's who I found when I found the Sufi Master packed in.
Yeah, I guess now that I think about it, it sounds just really similar to every hero's journey movie narrative.
Yeah,
Matrix
yeah,
is like the number one thing. Dude in an
yeah.
office cubicle, living a stable, boring life, breaks the spell of that by taking the red pill, and then goes amongst this crazy cognitive dissonance, and then betters himself to become actualized. Right?
And he has Yoda. He has Larry Fishburne. What's the name of Lawrence Fishburne in The
Mor-
Matrix?
Morpheus.
Morpheus. Morpheus. Thank you. Who was supposed to be Sean Connery? That was supposed to be Sean Connery originally. Who was going to play that role? Thank God it wasn't.
Yeah. Right.
Um, and I think in Lord of the Rings you can see the desire to break a glamour In Lord of the Rings, it's casting the ring back into the
Mm,
hellish pit from whence it was forged, and that's the circle. That's the thing going full circle. The bind of the ring is the same shape as the binding of a chain that would be applied to a wrist or a neck. And in order to break that, you can't break it through force. You have to literally take it back to where it came from and let it be completely destroyed and lose all the power that comes with it. Because in a lot of these mythologies, and even in the tarot card of the devil, when you see in the tarot card of the devil sits on his throne, and there is a naked man and a naked woman chained to his throne, I think around the neck, like Princess Leia chained to Jabba the Hutt. But they smile. They smile because they're happy because there are advantages and pleasures to being bound to evil. In our most common mythology, the pleasures are the pleasures of the flesh, the pleasures of narcissism. Somebody wrote the four virtues of LA were power, money, good looks, sex, something like that. These are I sound like a Christian Baptist preacher at this point. These are the devil's pleasures. These are the devil's advantages. So we have to learn also to forego the pleasure of our zombification. And that's not so easy. That's not an easy thing to do because you've got to take a good, long, hard look at your own shadow in order to do that.
and you just did a video on that too, right?
Doing a lot of videos on shadow work at the moment because I think what we're seeing on mass at the moment is a collective shadow possession in the classically Jungian sense. We've repressed and denied and negated for so long. The cellar is now completely full of our demons and ghosts, and they're bursting out of the cellar door. The transition of them coming out, if we do it consciously, we might save this thing. If we let them run rampant and don't accept them for who they are and where they're coming from, we're going to have a real problem very, very soon.
Like I was always fairly skeptical of these, let's just say, metaphysical, I guess, what do you call them? Like archaic biblical archetypes, that are taken
Yeah.
literally, like
Yeah.
demon possession, spirits, and these types of things. But I think, I mean, I was into it briefly during my psychedelic phase. I mean, that just happens, right? But now being so far removed away from that, returning to 2020 and seeing how these behavioral patterns play out and the psychological collective state of humanity, it makes sense to use some of these terms as a format for the behavioral patterns that are occurring. Like it really does feel like everybody is being possessed, or like somebody opened Pandora's box and all of these dark ghosts and spirits just started possessing everybody by massaging their minds.
Well, I mean, it's a problem that I still wrestle with to this day, and maybe will for the rest of my life. That in my story in Malaysia, the Sufi master invited me to become a mujahideen, a warrior for God to fight the demons of the apocalypse that were coming to take over the earth. And then I had a bunch of dreams and visions that confirmed that. And I'm looking back on it and I'm like, okay, in one version of reality, I was a very mentally ill person who probably had gone through a nervous breakdown and didn't realize it. And I was so open to suggestion that, and hypnosis, that he implanted these ideas and I dreamt it. And then I got better because, I don't know, placebo works. And in another version of reality, I'm like, what if it's something more literal than that? And then what I try to do now is I'm like, don't split it, because don't pretend you know to a certainty that the scientific Jungian Freudian version is right, or the purely spiritual Islamic or Abrahamic, like it would be Christian, Judaic, or Abrahamic view is right either. Maybe neither is right, and maybe neither is wrong. Maybe both are right and wrong at the same time. Maybe there's another map of reality that we haven't even come across yet that would explain all of this very, very easily. But it is a problem. Like, do you literally naively believe in demons? No, I'm not. I'm not crazy. But do I think that they're a useful metaphor? Yes. Are metaphors real? Yes. So a demon's real. And then I'm like, hang on a second. I've put myself into a corner here. I have these battles with myself when I'm thinking. I'm like, hang on a second. But if metaphors are real, If you live them as though they're real, then they're as real as the wall that's next to me. And so I have no solution. It's a problem that I think we all need to be aware of and conscious of. And maybe it's time to not run away from it. Maybe we shouldn't shy away from the more spiritual elements of things because we're scared of being written off as new age or woo woo or a bit fluffy.
Well, okay. So the more we're talking about this, I'm thinking about this right now. So imagine like you take a concept like an angel. I was gonna do demon, but let's just keep it light. Let's go with angel, right? So if you were to grow up in a time in human history where it's biblical times, for example, right? And you
Yeah.
needed to somehow comprehend, explain, and understand human behavior or psychological behaviors
Mm,
during that time period, would it be easier to just say an angel? These angels
yeah.
that are full of, glowing halos and they do everything compassionately, or do you go with the overly fucking complex and nuanced westernized academic literature of the DSM and psychopathy with cluster B, try to explain that to a kid growing up trying to navigate the world, right? Wouldn't it
Yeah.
make more sense in archaic times to like, hey, so all these behaviors can be embodied by this figure. Look, this is a painting of one. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Isn't he beautiful? Don't you admire him? Don't you just imagine? Doesn't he fit into your idea of what goodness looks like? He's a big muscly dude with wings and a fucking huge sword. I'm sure if you had problems and the Archangel Michael came down, he'd scare him away, wouldn't he? I actually would go one further. I'd actually surf the wave of what you've just said and say, based on what I understand of human psychology and human beings, that's a better metaphor than the DSM. I could do a
That
lot more good with more people talking about angels and prayer than I can talking about internal dialogues and DSM analyses.
right, and that's kind of what I'm pointing at, where it's like it's almost easier because it taps into such a deep subconscious understanding of
Mm,
archetypes and how certain types of human behaviors can come to be. You explain somebody some DSM chapter, or you explain to them an
mm,
idea of a demon or an angel. Which one are they going to understand even quicker? You know?
yes, yeah, which is why historically, I mean, I don't do coaching anymore, but I always really enjoyed working with devout Christians and devout Muslims because it's like, okay, there are some coordinates I can work with here. Do you believe in God? Yes. Do you pray? Yes. Okay, great. We can do something here
Yeah.
that's actually gonna speed the process because otherwise I have to explain to a non-naive recipient who's psychologically aware why it is beneficial to do affirmations that open up the unconscious to the idea of creating new realities. And then people go, well, do you literally mean create? No, I don't literally mean creating new realities, but it helps if you think it that way. That's a bit dry. That's a bit, ugh. Like that's not appealing. But if I say, okay, you believe in God? Yes. Did God create everything? Everything around us? Yes. Is God good? Yes. You believe in angels? I have to. It's part of my faith. Okay, so pray. Pray to the good entity that controls everything to make things easier for you. And pray to the entities that he has created to guide you and assist you because different archangels have different roles. One's there for communication, one's there for banishing evil, one's there for illness, so on and so forth. Or you have the saints in Catholicism, they have different roles and different jobs. Much easier, much easier to anybody listening to this, I don't do that, and I personally don't believe it. But I'm extremely jealous of people who do because it's an easier way to live.
No, for sure. And you know, do you know Jonathan Pajot? He's a YouTuber. He does the symbolic world.
No, I
Dude,
don't.
you'll
Sounds cool
you'll
though.
love him, man. He's really good. He's really good. And one of this common core themes of his videos, he analyzes everything through not a pseudo symbolic manner. He really knows what he's talking about here, and he'll do like pop culture and stuff like that. But one of the key concepts is that even if we obliterate traditional religion and ideas, they all somehow subconsciously manifest anyways. Like that's insane because if you think about it, like you're saying, it's easier to tell people to just to believe in God, pray to the good, but how many law of attraction, send good intentions to the universe, send it out there and it'll come back to you, and then people know karma all of a sudden. Like, everybody still finds a way to behave
Yeah,
religiously, even if
yeah,
they don't even know or study or weren't even raised on it. Like, these just natural metaphysical behaviors are just inherent
yeah.
somehow.
This was one of Jordan Peterson's more valid points when he had the debate, not with Slavoj Žižek, but the other chap about truth. And Jordan Peterson took a hammering on this one, but he had one really rock solid point, which was because the person he's arguing with is famously a complete atheist, and
Sam
he has like
Harris?
Sam Harris, thank you, Sam Harris, he's a good meditation instructor as well. But Jordan Peterson said, well, if you and nobody believes in religion, can you explain whilst we all behave as though we do? Okay, he
Mm.
took it from Jung. He took it straight from Jung, but even so, it was still a very, very valid point in a generally weak argument in which he did get torn to pieces. But the simple
Yeah.
fact is, we do act. We can't get away from it. We are religious entities. As animals, we're superstitious, we're religious, we're magical, and we believe in even if we don't, even if we say we don't, because we do magical things. You wouldn't, I don't think, if somebody showed you a picture of me and they said spit on it, you would feel something about that. You'd be
Mm.
like, I don't want to do that. You know who introduced me to this idea, by the way? A pure psychopath who'd been to prison. Met him in a bar. We were talking about magic, and he said, he asked me this: would you spit on a picture of one of your friends? I said, no. Why not? Why not? It's not going to hurt them. It doesn't do anything to them. It's no. They never know. It's not them. It's just it's just ink dotted in a certain way on a piece of paper. If I told you to spit on a tissue, you'd do it, wouldn't you? Yes, but you wouldn't spit on an image of one of your friends. Why? Because we act magically. We kind of feel like it
Mm.
would hurt them in some way, that we're doing some sort of voodoo to them, that maybe, they'd fall over and bang their head afterwards or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, people still knock on wood, and do the superstitious stuff. It's still
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the interesting things he analyzes, Jonathan Peugeot, how the religious context of the protests that happened earlier this year.
Mm,
And long story short, you have the sacrifice, kind of like this the Christ figure of Floyd,
mm,
who got murdered, and
mm,
seeing this inherently inhumane act happen that
mm,
like pretty much everyone agreed with. Like, that's not okay. It doesn't matter about the race situation. Like, I'm gonna leave that out
mm,
of this context, because
mm,
the core thing that I got out of this thing is that when that happened, it broke apart a key component of the collective psyche that
mm,
really stabbed at this part that allowed us to transcend into something
mm,
beyond, to tie us to the collective nature of our consciousness. Whatever you might believe about it, you can't deny that. I mean, the entire world started like protesting, and like
mm,
it was a point of transcendence.
mm,
After that, while this pandemic was happening and everybody was like, hey, follow the rules, don't spread the thing, people
mm,
still protested and went on the streets in mass numbers. And this is symbolic of the martyrdom and sacrifice that comes with self-flagellation, back with
mm,
the biblical narrative. Like, if you look at it from that standpoint, you could say, okay, hypocrites, because most people would say, oh, this is for the greater good. All of a sudden, you have all
mm,
these people putting themselves in a sacrificial position
mm,
for this transcendent greater good. And half of
mm,
these people are not traditionally religious in a lot of ways, So
mm.
just that narrative itself somehow follows some archetypal archetypal religious structure.
That's very interesting what you just said. It gives me a lot to think about because there's a lot of layers there. I kind of when you first started speaking about it, I had the thought George Floyd would only work as an archetypal sacrificial lamb, a Christ-like figure, if we all felt like that. And maybe And then in my head, as you were talking, I was like, oh, well, we all had this really strong emotional response to somebody slowly being suffocated while a grinning psychopath with his hands in his pockets refused to move off his neck. Do we all feel like that maybe in some way? Pure conjecture on my part, off the cuff, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
Do we all feel like there's a grinning psychopath resting on our necks who won't get off us? And it's not, we don't want him to stop because it hurts and we're going to have a sore neck afterwards. It's that if he doesn't stop, we'll be dead, and then he just stays on until we die. Do we all feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like it can. I think there's a lot here, but for it to be an archetype that functions, and I think it is, we must all feel that somehow. We must all feel that way.
Right. Yeah, I would say so. That was part of the analysis too, where there was this universal connection to a
Mm.
traumatic occurrence like that. And another interesting element was that, no, I don't want to get into that part. It just gets too fucking convoluted at that point. But I'm just like, but yeah, but like that's it's
were
interesting
you were
because
you
for
about were you about to walk down a conspiracy theory line right there?
almost it was just like
Yeah.
there's only so much Pandora's box that I can let out at once. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I know. I hear you. I hear you. But
But
I think everybody knows what you were
yeah,
going to say, so that's
the core
fine.
concept of what like I'm trying to bring out here is that no matter how much we try to obliterate religious behaviors and worldviews and concepts, it all
Mm.
will all manifest in another way, except without the foundation. And then
Ah,
from there, that's when
mm,
hell actually occurs, man.
mm, mm. Yes, I think there is a lot to that. It's one of the, I'd sort of come to a similar conclusion this year with meditation. I was like, oh, where does just pure meditation bereft of a religious system come from? Where do we see that? And I was like, it's only in the modern world. It's like it's like a tool bereft of an ideology to guide the tool. Which I don't think is a particularly bad thing. It was just something that occurred to me. I'm like, oh no, meditation historically has always been a tool rooted in a religious system, but it points to the same problem. There's this great unmooring, there's this great unanchoring, there's this great unboundarying of everything that also creates a huge amount of stress, a huge amount of cognitive dissonance amongst people because we're not moored to an ideology that lets us know what anything is, what life is. And we're sort of like, it's like the gravity on the spaceship of planet Earth suddenly got switched off. And now we're all floating around. And as you just said, if it's bereft of a spirituality, bereft of a discipline or a system, tends to become new age, wank bubbles, spiritual bypassing, and just narcissistic dirge without the rigorous discipline of some kind of a belief system to support it.
I mean, yeah, yeah, exactly. So with like for another thing is like all the sheer amount of name calling from either side of like you're doing the wrong thing. That's literally you're sinning. Repent now.
Mm,
That's
mm,
that's that's everybody. Everybody's doing that. So you have these different sects of what would be back then of maybe Christianity. They're all pointing
yeah.
fingers at each other. You're sinning. Repent now. And
Yes.
that had a somewhat of a foundation that still ended up murderous. But imagine you take out the foundation of an existing God, and then you
Yes.
have everybody pointing fingers at each other saying you're sinning without a God.
Yes. Without a God. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is one of the points that Slavoj Žižek was making, where he repeatedly said, if God is dead, people think if God is dead, everything is permissible. But if God is dead, nothing is permissible. And you can only have permission if God is real. So he was saying with a watchful God, you actually have much more agency. But the fantasy is if Daddy is dead, you can do whatever the hell you want, and you can't. He says there's no freedom there because there's no God. There's no God overseeing everything, which is it's a difficult concept to grasp. But I do think we're living that. We're living the freedom of God being dead. But what freedom is it? But the freedom to do what? Like, great, Daddy's dead now. We can party as much as we want. We can sleep with whoever we want. And then And then, like, what's next? We've gotten rid of something maybe that we really needed, and now we're paying the
Totally.
price.
So from that event of pure hedonism, of relentless do whatever the fuck you want, I think, I mean, shit, man. Like, as much as you look up any political podcast or whatever the fuck, man, nothing explains this shit more from what I've seen from basing archetypal religious narratives and pasting it in the time. So you have this period of pure unboundaried hedonism, and then this is not coincidental timing. All of a sudden, people start virtue signaling. You
Mm,
know, that's not just coincidence. It's like we
yeah.
did whatever the fuck we want for how many decades in the contemporary world with unlimited resources. And then now everybody wants to start pointing fingers that you're being morally incorrect. Why is that? Well, look at any other type of religious pattern just even a century ago.
I think you've been having a similar line of thinking today than I've been having, because it was actually something that was in my head this morning. I took a walk and I was thinking about the drive to be virtuous. I mean, virtue signaling really is posturing, it's posing. Signaling is a term from biology. It's animals signal to each other to let them know that they're aggressive or they're dominant or they're ready to mate or there's food over here or don't come over. These are signals amongst animals. They're posturing. It's a communication through posturing. And I was really thinking about virtuousness and like everything online when people do the defamation fandango and they call people out and they just shovel blame onto them. They're always the most virtuous, butter wouldn't melt in their mouth. They've never had a wank. They've never watched porn. They've never snorted a line of coke. They've never told an old lady to fuck off in a traffic jam because they're having a bad. Nothing. They're the purest beacons of virtue imaginable. And I was thinking, what are we really supposed to believe that? Why do we all put up with that? Why do we all put up with this? It's lunacy. It's ludicrous to let these people get away with it, and yet we do. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's just because they have the gall to do it, which is what a lot of religions throughout history did. They were just really ballsy. They just showed up and went, I have the magic book. I have the special cloak and the symbol. Do what I say. And they just had the balls to do it. And nobody was like, who are you? Or, well, no, actually, that's not true. Sometimes that did happen. It happened in Japan when the Christians turned up. The samurai looked at them and went, what did you say, mate? Jesus, is it? Yeah. Oh, he was crucified. We're going to crucify you and see how you like it. Because the Japanese, they weren't playing. They weren't having it at all. And there were other places that resisted it. But generally speaking, it did quite well because of the ballsiness of it. They just went with it and said, well, we're perfectly virtuous and pure. And the majority of people went, oh, well, that must be true then. And you say, well, how do you know that they're virtuous and pure? They told me. Oh, oh, well, no further proof required then, I suppose.
Hmm. I'm going to make a claim that I think I will be. No, I will stand by this. It's not that controversial, actually, but exactly in line with what you're saying. Movements like no fap, which is no masturbating,
Right.
veganism,
Yeah.
straight edge, sober lifestyle, live for success, workaholism, hustle culture. Um, I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm sure anybody in the chat could think of more. These are all religious manifestations. These are all
Yes.
principles that were literally fucking created how many centuries ago? And
Oh,
now all
it's thousands of years. It's thousands of years now.
thousands. These are
Yeah.
these are not new. No fap, bruh. People had
Yeah.
chastity belts, like bear traps on your dick, clamping on your balls, dude. Like, and it's crazy
That sounds like a
because,
fun night in.
yes, baby, you know, yo, it, it's insane because like all of these things are thousands of years old, and now we subconsciously developed a new way to live a life of purity and happiness, and
Yeah.
they're not new. They're not new. And you know, whether whatever your religious beliefs are, like I'm not a traditionally religious person, neither are you, Richard. I'm sure a lot of people here aren't either. We're not
Mm,
literal religious people. I'm not saying that
mm,
religion is by the book real, but
mm,
there's something that I think we can't deny is that regardless, humans in communities or of collectives or collectively in general
Mm,
still behave religiously regardless of the objective truth of it.
yeah,
People are
yeah,
still, I'm happy and no touching my, no diddling myself. You know, no, do not touch the animals. We do not eat them. They are one conscious. It's all, it's slightly ish magical, and it's
yeah.
religious behavior and thought patterns. And we can't deny that people naturally will succumb to that route.
Maybe in centuries past, you would these people would be the ones who always turned up at church on a Sunday, and they were in the first three rows, and they had the biggest hats and the most colourful dresses, and they really let everybody know that they were there, and they did the Wednesday night service as well, and twice on a Tuesday. They would be seen going to church. The pastor would see them and pat them on the head, or their neighbours would see them, and it was important to loudly and ostentatiously be seen to be pious. Maybe that's how it was. Maybe that's how people lived previously, and the modern day equivalent of that is social media. You mentioned there the timeline of these behaviors, um, and particularly blaming people so that your virtue is solidified and their sin is solidified. A process called scapegoating, which is something we see in narcissistically abusive family units. We have a print by William Blake of the scapegoat next door to my village back home in Benton, in a place called Port Sunlight, that hangs in the Leverhulme Gallery. Sorry for the chopper. CIA coming to get me. Fuck off. Fuck off. Bats. Bat country. And that practice is so old in the Jewish tradition, it goes back to before the Jewish people were monotheistic. It goes back to when it was still a polytheistic people. So they had multiple gods. That's how old it is. It is thousands of years old because there's some perversion in humans where we want to be washed free of sin and to put it into somebody else instead of carrying our own shit. Instead of working our own burdens and carrying our own responsibilities, we try and heap it over there because if they're all the way wrong, I must be all the way right. Are you kidding me? Like, this is not how adults communicate. This is not how adults, this is for toddlers and not very bright toddlers either.
Yes. So, I mean, just imagine the crusades of people with the pointy hats. You're sinning, repent, times a
Yeah,
million with Twitter. And
yeah.
at the same time, they're also tweeting that they meditated for 2 hours, they don't eat animals, and they don't diddle themselves. Dude, it's literally the same shit.
And my poopy smells of sandalwood incense.
Richard, I've been really getting into Black Mirror. I've watched a few before, but it put me in such a shitty place that I just avoided it for the longest time. And he smiles and he just drops out after the mention of Black Mirror. Meanwhile, I'm in a fucking Sith lair. Oh my god. No diddles, please and thankies. Dude, the timing on that one, that was good.
That was scary.
Yeah. Did you finish Black Mirror?
No, no, no.
Okay. I if there was one that I really want you to watch, and I think you'll get a lot out of it, is there's one episode called Hated by the Nation, which is
Okay.
years back, but it predicts the whole canceling Twitter lifestyle. But it's done literally. Ah, man, how do I talk about this without spoiling it though? Fuck, it's so good. Okay, maybe I shouldn't spoil it, right? Are you gonna watch it
That's a,
or
I'll no, you can explain a bit of it to me. That's okay. You can tease me. You can give me a few juicy tanglers, a few tentacles just dangled across my face.
okay? Everybody in the chat, I'm gonna spoil a decent-ish amount of Black Mirror's episode "Hated by the Nation." Um, the reason why I can watch all this shit now is just because it's so similar to reality that I don't even care anymore. You know, it's like I'm already living this shit, so it doesn't put me in a bad place. You know, so "Hated by the Nation" follows in post climate change world UK, and they made Android AI hornets and bees to pollinate everything, right?
Right.
And around this time, people are using an app just like Twitter, and people do what they do on Twitter, and that's they scapegoat whoever celebrity, whatever, da, 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 and they start tweeting at these things. Okay, so here's the spoiler part. Fuck, damn it, I don't want to give it away, but like, I just want to hear your opinion on this. But like, so what happens is one of the developers um, hacks into the programming of these hornets. When everybody tweets at a specific person, these hornets end up chasing them, right?
I saw this. I saw it.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
scary as fuck. It's a really scary episode. Don't the Hornets like murder them?
They get fucking sliced up by these hornets, man. Yo, it's crazy. You getting scared by something? That's crazy. Yo, this shit.
Yeah.
So okay, more spoilers, everybody. I just mute it for a few seconds. But the crazy, so in the end, what happens is the guy who developed the code, his manifesto and his original agenda is to actually slaughter all of the people that are a part of cancel culture. So anybody
Right.
who tweeted to get rid of fucking Kanye West.
Oh, this I don't remember. I think I just stuck on the horror movie sequences and didn't get the subtle point.
Yes. So even though this is a very literal science fiction depiction of this thing, it is happening though. And I think it's saying something where all of this canceling of somebody is going to get come back to bite everybody in the butt or sting them in the eyeball. And I
Right.
thought that was just like a really, really interesting way of depicting it, where everybody who wanted to cancel somebody basically died.
Yeah, I'm not fully against that idea, but I am a bit of a lunatic. So.
But I mean, like, look, I don't think it should be as drastic as getting a hornet to rip through your fucking pain core in your brain. But like, that is a great depiction of how karma can come back around, especially in the types of the orthodoxy and the crusades and the scapegoating.
Well, there's a whole conversation that needs to be opened up, and it has been, and we really need to have it as a society about consequences. We can't continue on in an environment where people can create anonymous accounts and then just attack each other and denounce each other online and say terrible things about them, accuse them of the worst crimes imaginable, just to besmirch the name, just because they felt grumpy with them that morning. That's not okay. We can't put power like that into the hands of people who are deranged, psychotic, unemployed, unemployable, with time on their hands. I mean, name another period of human history where you could have millions of Judas Iscariots just hiding behind the screen. I mean, at least we remember the
Right.
name Judas. We don't know these people's names. We don't.
Nope.
We don't there's no consequence to them. What did it cost them? I don't know. The 15 minutes it takes to set up 3 or 4 email accounts and put the information out there. That's all it cost them. So there is a conversation that needs to be had about internet anonymity, censorship, and controlling what we can and can't do online.
Yeah, man, totally. Dude, Black Mirror is so genius, man. This shit hurts to watch, but fucking hell, like the dude who writes all these stories, amazing, man. Like I can't
Yeah.
believe this comes from one person, dude. But like,
Oh, he's a really smart guy, and he actually he's made some brilliant stuff. I mean, if you like his right, he's a very funny guy. You can look up online Charlie Brooker screen wipe and
okay,
some of the analyses he does of British media and the British mainstream media. Hilarious, really really funny satirist. And he also did a short movie satirizing reality TV called Dead Set, Dead, Dead, Set, Dead Set. No spoilers, but it's a zombie movie. I loved it. It was a low budget zombie movie, basically sending up Big Brother. the Big Brother reality TV show. Excellent, really, really good. So Charlie Brooker, the guy behind Black Mirror, is a very, very talented, very bright guy. He's written a couple of books as well, and they're all worth a read. He's a good dude.
Yeah, man, it's good shit. Do you got time for questions, or do you have a time you have to leave?
I have time for two questions, and then I have another interview with a psychiatrist from New York. Would you believe?
Ooh, fun,
Ooh,
fun.
yeah.
Do you guys have any? Ah! Do you guys have any questions for me or him?
Did you
Oh,
just did you just sneeze, Pierre?
I karate chop dab sneezed.
Okay, I'm gonna have to call the Czech police on you right now. Sorry, comrade, but the rules are the
Is there
rules.
no sneezing indoors without a mask on? Is that what the rule is?
Hmm. Call the police.
Call up the police. Oh man. Okay. Let's see if we got any interesting comments here. Mm, no, no questions really. Here. Do you expect a traditionalist religious revival? I think it's already happening.
As far as I can tell, it's already happening. Yeah, yeah. And even if it's not, I mean, the likelihood of a traditionalist revival, like I mean, I don't know when the last one was. I don't know where we could point to and say the last one was a fully naive one. No, but one that is partly political, partly religious, partly philosophical, and done as a sort of communal effort to try and re-establish order is already underway. The world will swing unpleasantly far to the right over the next decade unless centrists and leftists and whiteists do something to stop that. We've really got to slam the brakes on this thing and start bringing some sanity and
Yeah.
some common ground back. We've got to get over this division and extremism. Otherwise, yeah, I think the next generation will just look up at the mess that we've created and say, well, we'll never do that again, and
Mhm.
they'll go quite hard right, I imagine.
I think it's already happening, just the terminology is switched out. So we don't have
Yeah.
Jesus and Buddha necessarily, but we have whatever the fuck. Hashtag
There'll be
no
new
fap.
Right, right. So there'll be new terms for it, and it will be as political as it is as spiritual, but it will be religious in its fervor. They will be zealots, and zealotry is never good. Zealots tend to kill people. That's not nice, is it?
Yes. I think we actually have a podcast section on Spotify with a few of these, right, Richard?
We do. What I can do is I can ask my man to focus just on releasing Tentacle Croissant on Spotify, or to prioritize on releasing
Okay,
Tentacle Croissant on Spotify. At the moment,
cool.
he's doing a lot of my YouTube videos, but Tentacle Croissant lends itself very much to a traditional podcast, I think. It's a good suggestion.
Mm. Guys, are you atheists in the simple literal sense? I am one, but I crave the peace healthy religion can bring. How do you feel about that?
No, I'm not. I'm not an atheist in the simple literal sense. No, my openness and some of my beliefs and some of my experiences and some of the way that I choose to live would would be too way too fringe for atheists to cope with. So no, I couldn't claim to be an atheist.
I think, how do I word this? I think where both
Hola.
you and I, where both you and I have kind of found a common ground is that behaving religiously doesn't have to be an inherently terrible thing. If you can
Oh
approach
God,
it,
yeah, no.
if you can approach it in a disciplined, grounded manner, a lot of religious concepts can really benefit your life. I'm not necessarily a religious person, I'm more agnostic, perhaps, but you can still behave religiously is the wrong word, but in something like that. It's only when people start religiously behaving without the groundedness and the foundation, or they completely omit it, and then they end up acting religiously subconsciously, is when things can get dangerous, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I noticed you didn't want to say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, because that phrase has been done to death and is
Yeah.
it's usually mouthed by people you wouldn't want to be associated with. But there isn't another term. You have spiritual, you have religious, I don't know, faith-based, and yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a way of living that may seem to be of a spiritual, religious leaning that's yours and it's not anybody else's. Where religion is terrible is when I start saying, I think the sea is really good and swimming in the sea is a religious experience. And then I force you to do it as well. I say, Pierre, you have to swim in the sea. And you're like, I don't want to do that. That's not how I experience connection with God or all that is. And I'm like, fuck it, swim or I'll cut your arms off.
Yeah.
It's not hard to see where religious go wrong. It's when
Yeah.
people start acting like control freaks and saying, you've got to do it the way I do. No, cunt, I don't. I don't have to do anything the way you do it, silly cunt. Go away, cunt, is what people should say when cunts kick off like that. It's the demand that you conform to a pattern of behavior that we
There you
need to
go.
be crystal clear in identifying this as the problem. No other human being should be demanding that you conform to their mode of behavior. Nobody has the right. Nobody. No, there are no gods here. I've not met one. I've not met a superior human being. Most humans are okay, nothing more. There's nobody that I would submit to as an authority figure. De facto, if somebody can convince me that they have an understanding and they ask me, I may comply. When people demand I comply, no, 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 no. That has to be a hard no.
That's a good one, man. You got time for one more? You gotta go now.
We could do one more.
I just watched the cognitive dissonance video. Is your solution for eliminating conflicting thoughts?
Um, well, it's not actually my solution, the solution, because cognitive dissonance is a concept. It's been around for decades. It's mainstream psychotherapy. And if the psychotherapist identified cognitive dissonance in the client, you would seek to resolve the conflict between the thoughts. Look, it can't be both. It can't be both. Those two things that we're trying to hold as one thing that contradict each other, it can't be both of them. So you would need to explore through dialogue where these beliefs have come from, what purpose they serve, what function they hold, and the client needs to be made aware. You're going to have to sacrifice if you want to grow and you want to move forward. You're going to have to sacrifice something. It's out of fashion, but we need to start talking more in terms of sacrifice because people want something for nothing. We're very, very, very spoiled. We're very indulged. Life is extremely easy now in many ways, extremely hard in many other ways, but we've lost the concept of sacrifice. So you're going to lose one of your precious beliefs, or both of them probably, if you actually look at them and explore them. It can't be the case that your mum was a horrible, sexually abusive, narcissistic psychopath, and that you should be a loving, loyal son or a loving, loyal daughter at all times to your mother, despite all of that. When you run that, and many of my followers who are running that belief system, they'll experience a huge amount of stress, not just in their relationship with their mothers, but in their relationship with all intimate partners. So you would seek to explore and then collapse some of these old beliefs to reduce the cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess objective, grounded analysis. I find that if there is cognitive dissonance, it usually means that one of the ideas, generally, in my assumption, is more grounded into an emotional attachment or an ego based attachment to it. And it's really hard to let go because
Yeah.
can't, you don't want to be wrong because it makes you feel bad about being
Yes.
wrong. You want to be
Yes.
right. So I think the
Yes.
worst types of cognitive dissonance come from that perspective.
Yeah.
So you could say let go to your ego, then it should be all right.
Let go to the ego.
Richard, it's been good, man.
Really good, really good. I'm sorry that it's still a bit glitchy today, but a little bit better than last time. Sorry for last time as well, folks. But I haven't, as ever, sir, I've enjoyed it.
Well, until then, man, this probably will be the last time I'll ever see you, considering the signal out there is not the best signal.
I'll be in
Uh,
America next week. I'll be in the land of good Wi-Fi from next Wednesday.
say hi to all of my removed relatives, please.
I will.
Thanks for joining, everybody. Richard, take it from here.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for your time and your attention. The most precious resources you have, no extensions, no refunds. Spend your time and attention wisely. And we're very grateful that you've spent it here with us. And we look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon.
See ya.
Cheerio.